right, happy Expiration Friday, everyone. Welcome to After the Close. I have with me this month Danielle MacRae. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. You showed up on a bit of short notice, which was helpful for me. So I always appreciate it. It's sometimes tough when you get flaky potential guests, you know?
I bet it is.
Yeah. So tell everybody what you do.
I am operations manager at a financial group in New Jersey, Greenridge Wealth Planning, and I've been there for just about 2 years.
Just about 2 years. What did you do before that? 2 years isn't that long.
Yeah, I did some client relationship management for about 12 years before that. So I kind of moved over in a similar type of role, which has evolved a little bit.
Gotcha. So, as an operations manager, what operations are you actually in? Are you doing more like front office, back office? Like what kind of
More
stuff are you focused on?
more back office, just making sure that all the T's are crossed, I's are dotted, everything is getting done. Clients are getting seen. Make sure, I do a lot of the compliance stuff as well. It's a pretty small company, so I
Hmm.
wear a lot of hats. But I make sure that clients are being taken care of. I do billing. I do a lot of different stuff, but not so many tasks. Just make sure everybody else is completing their tasks.
Gotcha. So are you like a legitimate boss, girl boss? You have people under you. Like how many people report to you in an operation that big?
When I started 2 years ago, there were four of us, and now there are eight of us.
In your department or in the whole company?
In the whole company, we're small, but we've doubled in 2 years.
Oh, okay. Now that's a lot more interesting. You're in a real like micro
Yes,
organization at the bottom floor.
yes,
Okay. So now we can talk about the entrepreneurship angle, and we can talk about,
yes.
how you're a Swiss Army knife of what everything that needs to get done.
Yeah, I've only really been in small firms, so
Hmm.
it's really natural for everybody to wear, as many hats as possible. Make sure, make sure you empty the dishwasher. Make sure everybody's, being a good roommate, taking care of everything and doing everything that they're supposed to do. And you just, you know, go where you're needed in
Sure.
small businesses.
I was always a big proponent of starting your career in smaller organizations because you learn a lot more at the beginning. You can
Exactly.
learn what you do like, what you're naturally good at, and what
Right.
you're not good at.
Right.
So that makes a big difference down the road because hopefully you pruned off the things you aren't going to like.
Right. Right.
So unfortunately, in a way, you're still in the small role, so you are still doing the things maybe you don't like.
Well, it's there are pros and cons to it. That you don't deal with any of the bureaucratic stuff.
Mm.
Um, and it's I've never been in a big organization, so I really don't know anything different.
Mhm.
So, it works for me.
So what sort of it's a financial planning firm. What type of products and planning do you do specifically? Your firm does, I should say.
We don't believe in a diversification because we call it lazy asset management.
Okay.
So it's a very active asset management. So I was actually hired to do the financial planning. I have my paraplanner license, so I started there.
Okay.
I originally started
Can
to,
you, I don't know, everyone might not know what that license actually is. Could you just take quick a side note? Like, could you explain that license?
yeah. So it's a very light version of the CFP.
Okay.
So you learn about how to do time value of money and everything related to financial planning. You learn all about the different kind of insurances and everything you need to know to complete a financial plan start to finish.
Okay. Is
So was
is
that?
that does that require a sponsorship, like a Series 7, or is that?
No, you don't have to be sponsored.
Oh, okay. Okay, so anyone could take that.
I think so.
See, that's great because I'm always looking for things that I could take that don't require a sponsor.
Yeah.
So like maybe that's something maybe I'd add to the list,
Yeah,
one day I would take.
it was really informative if you don't want to, commit to the CFP. It's pretty good.
Yeah, the CFP, because of its three levels, that's a task.
It's the
And it
first
could be a
level of the
multi-year
CFP.
process. So going back though to you don't believe in diversification. You mean like you don't invest in indices, or it's
It's there's no cookie cutter,
okay.
really,
Okay.
is the point. So
Gotcha. So you guys kind of more form like custom plans based on every
custom
individual's
portfolios,
need.
yeah. So that's, we have two people in our office who that's their sole purpose every day is to, do the research and do all that. In places that I've been in the past, um, haven't I don't want to get super specific, but now we're an RIA,
Okay.
so we're we don't we don't have somebody we're not using models from like LPL like we did in the last place I was who, do
Mhm.
everything for you. We do all of our own asset management.
I see. Okay. So you are making the full allocation decisions. You're not basing it on, say, like a template.
Correct.
So it's almost like, to use like a different analogy, it'd be like in your original role that did that, it would be like, oh, somebody bought a McDonald's and operated it to the rules of McDonald's.
Right.
Whereas now you've started your own like hamburger joint.
Sure. That makes sense. That's a good analogy.
Okay. All right. So I'm with you so far. And so you're doing the operations specifically. So is that more like the client end operations, or is that like what ops are you actually
Yeah,
managing?
it's more making sure that client tasks are taken care of, making sure
Mm,
people make it through our onboarding process properly, going through our client list and making sure, when was the last time this person was contacted? When was the last time this person was contacted? Making sure that we're, above and beyond what compliance requires of us, which is to meet with every client once a year.
gotcha. All right, cool. So you've been doing it about like 2 years now, you said.
Yep.
And have you been like, that's a lot of pandemic period. Have you been in the office, remote? Was it like,
I actually missed the pandemic. So I have been in the office for the whole 2 years.
oh, okay, 5 days a week, or is it like hybrid?
Um, in the summers, I work 4 days a week in the office and Fridays from home,
Okay.
and it affords me the flexibility to be home when the kids need to be picked up. My youngest has to be picked up from daycare 2 days a week, and it's giving me being in the office as often as I am. I have the freedom in my mind to pick up the kids or take them to a doctor's appointment or do all the things that need to be done in addition to working, full time.
Right. So you have a family chore to take care of during the 9 to 5 hours. You go get it taken care of without guilt or remorse.
Guilt without as much guilt as I,
With as little guilt as realistically possible, given you want to
there
do
is
well in your job.
still guilt for leaving,
Sure.
always, but it's a necessary situation.
Got it. Okay. I agree completely. I agree completely.
Yeah,
And
I always have a hard time being the first one to leave because I always am the first one to leave,
okay.
always. So there's a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but there's definitely guilt there.
I it's yes. I get that the guilt can be there when you do those types of things. I used to have it. I do not any longer.
I think it's different when you're in a small company too.
I think that's fair.
And that's, that's one of, I think, the drawbacks. I would say there aren't, to me, all that many drawbacks about it, but I really, the guilt gets me. And it's because there's so few people, I guess.
Hmm. But we'll look at the flip side of it. Do you ever like log in at night to bang out a few things?
Yeah. And
So that's the counterbalance, right?
I still do some of the financial planning. So I will always take a call for a client at 6:30 or 7:30, in the evening when it works for them. So
Gotcha.
I never have a problem doing the evening things.
And that's the counterbalance.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
You know, like I think like the way you're describing it should be the norm. That to an extent, I mean, at a certain point, you put the phone down, you put the computer down. Like you don't need to be doing stuff at like 10 o'clock at night. But being on call, like you're not, some surgeon like who's on his
Mhm.
the 48-hour on call notice. But just okay, stuff needs to get done, and it gets
Mhm.
done, and that's kind of the beginning, middle, and end of it.
Yeah. I do a lot of work laying on the living room floor with the girls. Like I have my computer on the floor, I'm laying there and they're, doing their thing, but at least I'm there. So it's, it's a balancing act. And I think that moms in general have a lot more guilt than dads with a lot of that stuff.
I think that's in aggregate fair. Um, I don't know what to. I agree. I agree that it's not. I'm not like going to come back and say like, oh, but dads have guilt too. No, no, no. I agree with you that it is easier for me to just walk away from them. Say like dropping
Right.
them off at daycare, and they're crying and they don't want to go to daycare, but they have to go obviously
Yeah.
because you have to go to work.
Yeah.
I think on average, the dad is probably easier to be like, all right, I gotta go,
Well,
bye,
I
and then
mean,
to be
I
able
don't
to focus
necessarily
on their
mean
day.
in the emotional side of it. I mean, in the splitting of the time as mom working full time,
Mhm.
your time is split in so many directions all the time that there's a lot of that guilt. Did I give them enough attention? Did I give work enough attention? Did I give my husband enough attention? Like there's a lot of things that I think women overthink, or, maybe I'm being sexist, but I
Yeah,
personally,
I don't
I
think you
wouldn't even
are. Go
say as a
ahead.
woman, but I think I overthink a lot. I just want to make sure that I'm giving everything the attention it deserves.
Of course, and I think that's a good intentioned action.
Yeah, but then you
Um,
get really frustrated.
hmm?
Then you spend your time frustrated that, you feel like you're not giving the things that deserve the attention as much as they should be getting.
I can understand that. I don't think that any of those thoughts are bad at all,
Yeah.
um, or incorrect. I mean, I think the swinging it back a little more economic, so to speak, like the idea, like as we all know, I am unemployed. So I am doing two things right now. I am full-time stay-at-home dad right now. I get to like try that on for 3 months
How
until I go
does it
back to
fit?
work. What?
How does it fit?
It it's like breaking in a new pair of shoes. Um, but we'll come back to that. I am a stay-at-home dad right now, and I also, as one of my tasks, have decided to rewatch some of the old Simpsons. So I just have like the Simpsons on from like the pilot episode on, kind of in the background while I'm whatever, folding laundry or I was
Right.
painting recently. Just kind of have it on in the background because I hadn't watched it in years. I'm just gonna start to watch it. Simpsons is about the nuclear family, the mom, the dad, the 2.5 kids, and it was designed as such where the dad goes to work every day, the mom stays home and raises these 2.5 kids, and somehow by the grace of God this guy has a barely a high school diploma, but he can afford to be a homeowner. He has two cars. He's putting 2.5 kids through
Yeah.
whatever he has to put them through for sports, for camps, for this, that, the other thing. Somehow he's making it work. That's not the way the world is in 2023.
Nope.
Like the
Nope.
world can't, it's just it's so like it's not designed
Right.
where, or rather it's still thought to be possible generally, but it's really not. You can't have the one person works, the other stays home, and you make sure that the kids have everything they have taken care of. It's a real like why I'm a proponent of remote work or real flex work, because then you can go do that for your
Right.
kids
Right.
and work kind of because you need to, but
Yeah.
kind of because you want to.
Right. It definitely helps with the balance.
Right. Like, and it's a major, major asset to people in like their, say, 30s and 40s who are
Right.
raising children at that time.
Right.
Like it is on par with like remote work, I think is going to go one of two ways. It'll either be they'll either put a dollar value on it, like you
Mhm.
make I always like to use round numbers. So it's like, okay, you make $100,000 at this job if you work from home every day, but you'll make $110,000 a year if you are in the office to help train the new kids and do whatever.
Right. Mhm.
Also, there'll be either be a cash value on it, or it's
Right.
going to be treated like healthcare and 401k benefits, where people will stick to the job because they
Right.
like the benefits. The benefits
Yeah.
being remote.
Mhm.
I think it's going to go those two ways.
It
But
sounds reasonable.
yeah, that's more like the technical side of all that, and that's like my rant. But to your point about not feeling guilty, fuck them. Like, do what you're gonna do.
No,
Like,
you're right. You're right. But
what the fuck do they get the fuck out of here? Fire me. Go
it's
ahead.
easier said, and it's just easier said than done.
Yes, that's fair. It is easier said than done, but it can be done.
You're right. Well,
And,
I do it.
like,
I do it every
I mean,
day.
like, people abuse the privilege 100%. I've seen cases where people are abusing the privilege, but like, you're not one to do that. You're getting your work done, so you just do it. It's fine. You can do it. It's fine. Like, I do it.
Right.
And if they give me an attitude about it, I basically say, like, what are you gonna do? Like, did
Yeah.
my stuff get done?
And yeah, there's never anything, it's not coming from anywhere else except in my head.
Sure. No, it's natural. It's not like you're gonna have
Yeah.
this. I mean, it's a positive reflection of your work ethic that you want to be there and do a good job,
Yeah.
right?
No, you're right.
So if you are thinking that in your own head, you're probably exhibiting that in your job performance. So people are probably going to largely be okay with it.
Yeah, I can't say that I think anybody actually has a problem with it because it's how I started, so it's not like this is a new thing. So I don't,
Right.
that was it was a communicated thing when I took the job. I can work these days at these times, and that's that. And is that okay with you? And yes, that's okay with us,
Mhm.
which, we has gone there. So it's really just, I feel like no matter what, I would have a guilt in my head for, not being, not doing the norm in the office.
I can see that. I can see that. It depends on what your job function is a lot of the times too.
Right,
As I like to say, I do IT at a bank. Like nobody gives a shit what happens. Like
right,
nobody gives a shit if I'm
right,
doing it from India, New York, Charlotte, the Antarctic Circle. It doesn't matter. They
right,
just care that
right,
when the thing blinks red, I click the button and it turns green. Like that's my
right,
job.
right,
So it definitely depends on your job function,
right.
and that can make a big difference. Also the people who, are writers for Saturday Night Live. Yeah, I get it. They kind of have to be there to bounce ideas off each other.
Right.
So that's a whole other aspect of things. But, your role as an operations manager is you have things that need to get done. They get done. You have at least maybe one other person who can cover for you.
Right.
Because if you're being a responsible manager, you have that backfill.
Well, provided everybody is, taking care of their tasks and things are, keeping the balls rolling, then, it's not something you actually physically have to be there for. Although it is nice, to walk up to somebody, hey, did you do this? Did you do this? How are we doing on this? That type of thing.
Sure. I think there's probably an inverse component to like being there and talking with people when you have a small group is probably much better.
Right.
But like if you're talking
Absolutely.
with like the
Totally
people
different.
in, like I said, in India, or you're in New York, and then there's other people in Chicago, and like whether you're home or in the office, you're all still getting on a Zoom call.
Exactly.
That's a totally different dynamic. I agree with that for sure.
Right.
For sure. The other thing, though, which I'm hearing is like you're saying there's a guilt, and I'm almost fixated on that a tiny bit because I don't have any of it. You know what I mean?
Like
Like
ever?
I'm really just like, I got to do what I got to do.
But ever, you've never felt that ever, or just now?
You mean at other jobs that I feel guilty for leaving?
Not even, I'm not saying necessarily feel guilty for leaving, but I feel guilty, not giving my kids 100% of my attention 100% of the time. So
No, I don't.
I just I think I'm just a guilty feeling person.
I don't think you're unique in that regard.
No, and I'm sure I'm not, because I
Yeah.
think a lot of a lot of people that I know have a very similar, mentality.
Yeah, I won't go there. Uh,
You could go there.
I was gonna say, are they all women?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So there you go. Um, I don't think it's a wrong feeling to have. I just know that I don't have it.
It's not a productive feeling.
I think the best solution to that, in all honesty, is to just kind of like you got to come to terms with it and know that you got to have like at least so like what's a great example? Like having you have to have somebody in your stead at least. Like you need some like I do my fair share, and then I have things I also need to do, but I have arranged to make sure that they are in good hands, that they
No,
will feel satisfied,
that's
right?
fair.
Like
Hmm.
we're in the summer right now. Are your kids in camp?
Madison is in camp. She was in camp last week. She'll do tennis for 2 weeks next week and the week after. But we have my mom and dad are here on Mondays and Tuesdays. My
Okay.
mother-in-law is here Wednesdays, Thursdays, and I'm working from home on Fridays.
So
So
somebody can cover them any day.
yeah,
Yeah. So that's exactly what I was saying earlier. Like you have somebody in your
yeah,
stead to make sure that
yep.
they're occupied and in like feeling like they're in like engaged and have like
Oh yeah, we're so
attention on them.
lucky in that regard. They'd much rather be with, their grandparents than anybody else.
Oh, of course, because they get spoiled rotten. 100%.
Absolutely.
Um, the summer camps here, we had to like hurry up and get it all together and kind of like it was the same idea. Like, oh, she's doing this for a week, she's doing that for another
Right.
week, and we got to pay for each one of those upfront in
Hmm.
cash. Thank you very
Yep.
much.
Yeah.
Um, Actually, it worked out though because now I don't have to pay daycare right now because they're in the camps. So we like front loaded all the payments, which worked out nice.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so the thing is, there were still a few weeks where we couldn't find anything. So, for example, last
Right.
week, because it was the 4th of July, no camp, and 4th of July fell on a Tuesday, which sucked.
Right. So yeah.
There was no camp on the week of 4th of July. So my oldest one was with me as like my lackey all last week, which was
Right.
fun. So I like instilled like great pieces of like wisdom in her all week. Showing her different
Oh, how did
crap
that
as I was
go?
like, it went fair. I took her to Target one day because her that's her favorite store.
Obviously.
I mean, who isn't? Because and she was going to use her allowance money to buy something that she wanted.
Right.
So we're starting to get into this whole like money concept, like how
Right.
much do you have? How much are you going to spend? How much are you
Yep.
going to save? So an unemployed finance guy took his daughter to the store, and you can imagine, you know me pretty well. How easy is it for you to picture me with my daughter in the aisle at Target arguing over the cost of a
I would have
particular toy
loved
and
to
it's
have been there
worthwhile?
to see that.
You can imagine that conversation taking place where I'm explaining that she can get like so much more value out of it if she just
Good
was
luck
to
with
do it.
that.
Yeah, it didn't work out so great.
Well, good luck
Um,
with anybody telling them that if that's what I want, that's what I want.
yeah, that's true
My
too.
money.
Yeah, that was a whole big thing. Like it was like it's her
He's
money,
right.
and it's like, well,
Right.
kind of to what extent am I gonna let like
Exactly.
a 6-year-old burn through their piggy bank?
Well, that's you created that monster.
I did a little bit, but she actually made a very prudent decision at the end, which was cool.
Yeah, after an argument.
Well, it wasn't so much of an argument, it was more of like a spirited discussion.
Okay.
I mean, like, only one person, voices only raised once during the entire thing. And I'm proud to say I brought my voice back down as soon as possible.
Well, I'm very proud of Scarlett for keeping her composure.
She did a good job. No, so anyway, we ended up going to Target as like our activity for the day because she wasn't in summer camp this week, and it turned into this whole big like thing about what she's gonna get. And long story short, we got a Barbie doll. That's what we came home with. So we did all right. Could have been a lot worse. I talked her down from like, the she came in with the angle of attack of like, how much money do I have?
Yeah, well, you really should have gone in
Because
with
I'm
a
going to
budget.
spend all of what's the biggest thing I can buy is basically
You
what
should have gone
she
in with a budget, was your first mistake.
Yeah, yeah, but they were kind of negated. She was loaded up on all that like grandparent Easter money.
Okay.
So she was like burning a hole in her pocket a little bit,
Mhm.
So she had like an abnormal sum of money for a 6-year-old. So she's like,
Was it in her pocket, like bulging in cash?
no, I was holding money. I wasn't just gonna I was just gonna let her like, it'd be like
Go
dollar
up to the
bills falling
register
out of
and
her
pay
pocket.
for it.
And she's leaving a trail of breadcrumbs, but it's dollar
Yep.
bills.
Well done.
Um, but that was one of our days because we had to
Yeah.
do that. She's finishing up all the other camps throughout the summer, and I'm doing all the driving and stuff, and that's been fun. This is the first time I'm starting to get back into the idea of like morning traffic because I've been remote. And so I get up every morning and I'm taking her to like the camp, which is like across town. So I gotta like drive through all the city traffic here. I don't miss it. Don't miss it at
No.
all.
Well, the nice thing about my commute where I am now, it's an easy drive. It's so, I used to drive from Jersey City to Fairfield, which was not an easy drive. You know,
Hmm.
Emily Avenue, Route 46, Route 3, they were just horrendous. So a bad commute can can totally ruin the day.
Oh,
So
absolutely,
I've
absolutely. I
never
mean,
had a bad commute. Like I'm on 287. It takes me 25 minutes to get to and from work. It's not, and that is what makes going in less miserable if the commute's not terrible.
100%. So I have the idea in my head of that like northeast like radical commute as well. That's like my default. Like that's what I saw like my dad do, or like other people do.
Mhm.
Like they get up, they get on the train. It's like 80 minutes on the train into the midtown, and then you got to go in and you got to do this, that, and the other thing. And then
No,
it's
you're exhausted by the time you even get there.
100%. And we got to do the whole thing back again at the end of the day. It's such a time suck, and it's like a gruel. It's like a grueling pace at times, especially if it rains.
Right.
God forbid it rains in the New York Metro.
Right. I'm
You're
sure.
screwed. You're screwed. Uh, Traffic down here is not so bad, not at all. And it's almost like I have it over because like I was like, oh, I gotta drive across town, blah blah
Yep.
blah. 15 minutes, got there, turned around. I was back in like under 40, like round
Yeah,
trip,
not
40
bad.
minutes. No big deal. That's what like those smaller metros here. I'll have like this entirely different scale of expectations for certain
Mhm.
things. And I gotta tell you, some of them are really pleasant surprises.
Good.
It's been nice to not have to like, jump over 3 homeless men and, like go through a traffic jam rooted in construction that's been going on for 3.5 years.
Right. Right.
So
Walk into the path, walking a mile to the path every day.
I
Sounds
used to in uphill both ways. I
with
used
a
to walk to that
pancake in
path
your hand.
with a pancake in my hand. Yes, yes. That people don't know the extent of what my commuting norms were.
Yeah,
So
you were a trooper.
yeah, so I was renting a room from you. That's when this whole like when at this point. And I was working in the city right near World Trade Center. And your fiance, God bless him, was in excellent shape. And he always would make himself his meals. So he used to make like chicken and rice for himself for the week, great meal for lunch when he's taking it with him, and he'd make pancakes for himself. And I guess at some point we said like, oh, I thought we were like, because you and I have always been ball busters, and your now husband, he's a sweetheart. He's like too much
Yeah,
of a sweetheart.
can be. Yeah.
So at some point we were probably busting his balls saying that, he's so rude for not making us pancakes
Aren't you
when
glad
he
you
was
said
making
that?
one for himself for his like diet regimen. So God bless him, he started making me a pancake every day, a big, giant, like plate-sized
Plate-sized
pancake.
pancake.
Like sometimes, and it was always like just buttermilk, just a plain pancake on a paper plate, which my mouth is getting dry just thinking about. And he also had a much earlier. I got up and out. I thought I used to get up and out early to get into the city for like, because like you used to be on the trading floor, you'd have to be on the floor at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
So like I was out the door by 5:45 some mornings.
Yeah. He's out by 4:30
Right,
sometimes.
right. So like I try to tell him not to or try to like beat him
Good
out,
luck.
and he was already out the door. I'm out the door at 5:45. So I used to have to walk every day about a mile, like a full walk to my to catch my train.
Yep.
And in the dark at 5:45 in the morning. So I just took the pancake with me. So I used
Cold,
to
dry pancake.
this cold dry pancake. I would just take it with me and just chomp on it. Just like chomp like I was chewing on corn, like old cornbread in the Wild West. Like I would just like it would like spit it out and it would hit a spittoon. And this is walking down the highway. Because it
Yep.
wasn't we're not talking about like a dainty walk
No.
down the suburbs. We were in this was Jersey City. This was like
Yeah.
I'm on a main highway in my
Yep.
khakis and my windbreaker,
Yep.
going to my bank job, eating a crappy pancake at 6 in the morning.
God bless him.
At a certain point, I found that there was a garbage can like at the bodega 2 blocks over. So at a certain point, I just walked with it for 2 blocks and threw it away.
Because you can't throw it out at home.
Because he'd know. We told him repeatedly to stop, but he wouldn't. I don't
Yeah.
know why. Like, did he like eating his pancake? That's probably the question I always wondered the most. Did
Well,
like
he always ate it warm with butter and syrup.
Oh yeah, that's probably the difference. Yeah, mine was cold and plain.
Yeah.
Oh man, but it was the
The
thought that
simple
counts.
days.
The simple days. I used to rent a room from you and like walk to. I used to walk through. That commute was something of like that was like Dorothy going to down the yellow brick road to Oz. Like the number of crazy characters you would meet along the way
I mean,
to
that's a
work,
mile walk just to the path.
just to the path. Yeah, so I haven't even met the crazies on the path yet.
Right, right. I mean,
After I've
you
gone a
mile
mile
to
through the
meet
city.
this group of characters, and then on the path, and then the walk to work. I mean, that's how long did it take you? Door to door.
So I worked in different buildings on Manhattan Island when I lived there. So the overall commute times varied. But the longest would have been to Empire State Building. So it would have been that mile walk was like I always gave myself 20 minutes to hoof it. Like just rain or shine, like hoofing it to the path station. I'd catch the path to 33rd Street, get out, which is also another assuming the path's on time. And the worst, it's like it was a situation where it's like if I make it by this time, I'm on it. If I miss it by a minute, it's gone, and then I gotta stand there and wait for like 8 minutes.
Right.
So like if I missed it because like I was just walking slow or I was like hung over that day or whatever the hell, I was walking slow. It'd be like 10 plus waiting like 8 plus another 20 to get over plus like another 5 to 8 to get to my building. So it's a solid hour. It's a solid hour.
It's
It
a
wasn't too
treacherous
bad.
hour, though.
What?
It's a treacherous hour.
It was. It was like a real like it was like a harsh hour, especially when it was like 12 degrees in February. Like that was
Yeah.
rough. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was more, I used to do it multiple times a day though, because it'd be like a Friday. And so then I would like go in the morning, do that whole like bit, that hour bit,
Yeah.
and then I would come back out at the end of the day. And
Hmm.
then like I'd be like going out or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
And then I would go home, I'd eat dinner, I would change, and then I would just walk back to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
path. And this time I'm going to like where I'm going to like, I'm going to the village, I'm going to Midtown, I'm
Right.
going to like wherever to go out for the night with people. And then if I couldn't crash anywhere or didn't like, or I was coming home at the end of the night, I'd have to do it yet again to come home,
But drunk.
but drunk, which honestly made it better in some
If you
ways.
made it in the house.
If assuming I made it into the house. What I would do though is, and this is like real like city living stuff. This is like like what you're doing. I knew which car in the
Yes.
train
Yep.
to be in so that when it pulled into the station,
Go right at the escalator.
I was right at the escalator. Like it would be coming in at the station where I was going to pick up the
Mhm.
train and I'd be counting and then I'd know where to get in and then I would pull up and I'd be the first one out the door at the escalator so I could get up the escalator to catch the cab at the cab
Yep.
stand because there'd be like 200 people getting out and there'd be like four
Yep.
cabs. So
Yep.
like I would routinely be able to get the cab home.
Right.
And to boot it you know, to boot, it costs $5
Yep.
plus you tip them a buck.
Yep. $6. That was it.
So I used to keep $6 cash in my shoe
To
to boot.
boot. Hmm. I like that.
I would keep $6 cash in my shoe because when you're like in your mid 20s, there's a very good chance you're just gonna blow through all your cash at the bar. So I would always have my $6 to get home. That's what I used to do in the city.
Very veteran move.
I got it down to a science when I used to do that. And so, like I know all about the commuting and all the stuff going in and
Yep.
out of the city. You, on the other hand, were a bit of a homebody.
By that time. Yeah.
By that time, you were. Yeah, which was probably for the best
Yeah.
because I think one time I got locked out of the house.
Yeah. You slept on the porch. Oh, you met me at the Apple store in your pajamas to get my key because I think the UPS guy had locked the porch door. And you had broken the
Yes.
basement window to try to get it. It was like, I
Let's
just
say
remember you
that's a
walked.
story for another day.
Yeah,
There's too much like circumstance around that
you're
stuff.
right. Okay.
But yeah, one time I had to break the window to get into the house. That's true. One time I got locked out and I had to sleep on the porch and it was like
Yep.
February.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's just life. What, that didn't happen to you when you
No,
No,
don't think
no.
so.
Yeah, all right. Well, at least you had a home. I was renting from you.
It worked. It worked for us for a while.
It did. The home, I'm now used to the home ownership. We've been in our house for just over 2 years. And I think the biggest pain in the ass is just the sheer variety of things that can go wrong. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, but it's just thing after thing after thing after thing after thing. And they're all different types of things. And it's like, God
Yeah.
damn it.
Well, that's I mean the pros and cons of having a husband who is extremely handy is that he can do it all, but then he has to do it all.
Hmm.
So it's it's a blessing and a curse that he could fix everything and be the landscaper and the pool man and the plumber and the awning fixer because I broke the awning yesterday. So it's just it's a lot. It's a never ending exhausting process. Not for me.
For you, not for you. For him, I feel sorry for him.
Well, somebody will say, oh, the backyard looks great. I'm like, thanks. Didn't do anything, but thanks.
Mhm. We that's the one thing I did. Like we budgeted it in. I said like I'm not gonna be mowing the lawn every Saturday.
Right.
I'm just not gonna do it. Like we will get a smaller house and pay a smaller mortgage because I'm gonna tack on that monthly cost to have somebody come and do it.
Right.
Because I'd grown up doing it, and it's tough. And to your point earlier about not spending time with like the kids, it's a situation where like I got to kill 3 to 5 hours on like my
Right.
weekend doing that. That means we can't like, I can't take them to like the pool, and I
Right.
can't like or take them to like, music or dance or
Right.
whatever. It's like an extra
Right.
thing. So to pay it, it's like that's one that's totally like let them do it. They do
Yeah,
it
you're right.
faster, they do it better, they do it, it's just done. Painting though is the big thing I'm doing now. I'm painting like my whole goddamn house this summer.
Oof.
And so I'm kind of going room by room and getting the downstairs done. And then we'll see. I'm sure there'll just be more like areas that get tacked onto the
Is
list
it getting
entirely.
better and better as you go?
It's not so bad. It looks good. It's the standard is pretty straightforward of how good it has to look, and that
Mhm.
is my wife says, yeah, that looks good.
That's
That's the
that's that's
standard,
that's the test.
right? I mean, my wall, which you can't see here, but my wall in my office has just like Crayola marks all over it and like markers and stuff all on the wall because I let my kids play on my whiteboard and stuff and draw
Right.
pictures and stuff, but they miss.
Oh, of course.
And so my wall is like destroyed with different markers and crayons and colored pencils and stuff, but it's fine. I just let it go. It's fine. It doesn't change anything.
No,
Sometimes I think
I
it's
agree.
like teasing me and haunting me a little, but it's fine.
I have much more of the mentality where he is very, everything has to be just so, everything has to be neat and clean and no marker on the walls, and that, we differ in that capacity.
Yeah, I think that's the nature of it. Where there's always one who really cares and one who kind of doesn't. Because I think if you both really cared, your heads would explode.
Yeah, and if you both really don't, then you live in a shithole.
Eat dirt, you'd be done.
Yeah.
So now you have been in your house for about how long?
We've been on the 7th, it was our 6-year anniversary.
Okay, so you've been in your house like back in the low mortgage interest days.
Oh yeah.
Dude, we
Oh
got in. I want to frame a picture of interest rates and like put a little star on
yeah.
where like we like booked it
Hmm.
because it looks we look like we're the most brilliant people on earth.
Well, we refied at the same time, so we also look brilliant.
Hmm. And I know mortgage rates just in July have now re-hit like new highs. Like they were up, they hit new highs like extraordinary values like 6.5, 7% back in like
Can't
what it was like
imagine.
April, May. They're just hitting it again now.
It's so sad, for that to happen, especially, your first time home buyer and not knowing what you were really looking at, and then looking at that final mortgage cost and seeing how much of that is interest. It's depressing.
It the pace at which the rates changed to like your average person who wasn't really like in a financial role who was very like acutely aware of interest rate changes, it had to have been shell shock. Like I kind of like I figured I was like, oh yeah, they're gonna start raising rates and they probably end up somewhere in this vicinity roughly because I
Right.
read this stuff all like I kind of knew it was gonna happen. I kind of was like I read about it all after we closed. Like I got my mortgage by dumb luck. So we deliberately got in there because I
Right.
had some mystical knowledge. I'm just saying that when I saw how inflation was going up and reading the articles, I knew like, oh, interest rates are going to go up and this is it. Like you're not going to get like a 3% mortgage anymore. A lot of other people didn't know that was going to happen. They've had like
Right.
3 to 4% mortgages since for like their entire adult life, and then they're like,
Right.
"I'm finally going to do it," and then
Yeah.
they find out that they're fucked because now they have to pay like 7%, and like that.
I think a lot of people don't realize, the difference between 3% and 7%. It
No, that's the thing. It's a very
doesn't sound like a lot.
non-intuitive idea.
And then when you see it, it's a big difference.
100%, 100%. It's a very like the amortization schedule of a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. It's a very non-intuitive like discounting.
Right.
So the difference between like 3% and 4% and 6% and 7%, people have like no idea what it's actually doing until they
Yeah,
see it on paper.
you wouldn't. That's why so many people back out,
Mhm.
after your offer has been accepted, and then you actually see that number. People we're not expecting it. That's why so many people have been backing out of, maybe not so much now, but people were backing out of home purchases here. And that was like the biggest problem.
In your
No
like
one,
vicinity, and you're like in the suburb area where you're in, a lot of people were backing out.
yeah, yeah. I think people didn't realize, everybody, the bidding wars were so crazy. You
Mm,
offered this astronomical amount over asking, and then you win the house, and then you see really what your payment's going to be, and you're like, holy shit, I can't do that.
sure, absolutely. I know that here it's been counterintuitive that despite the raising rates, closures are still pretty rip-roaring in this neck of the woods.
Oh yeah, but I feel like a lot of people, accept that one offer, and the first one, it's there's a decent chance it'll fall through.
Yes, that's absolutely true. A thing that I was saying about we live in a development, like a like you're part of the development. It's not disambiguous at all. You're either in or you're out. You're paying the HOA, you're in the
Hmm.
whatever. As the home prices rise, what I'm afraid of is what, like, let's say rates do come back down, and then home prices as a result continue to go up because now rates are going lower and people are able to afford more. You're going to get people who can just naturally afford I'm going with somewhere with this. You're getting people who can naturally afford higher home prices now living in your neighborhood, which is how keeping up with the Joneses ends up happening. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And then like I'm interested to see how that might play out over the next 5 or 10 years, given that I have like kids who are going to be playing with
right.
those
Yeah,
kids.
yeah,
You know, like, and again, to use round numbers, like let's say I paid $500,000 for my house because I could afford a $500,000 house, but then over time, the houses are now $1 million, which is maybe great for me on paper. But now you get people moving in who can afford $1 million house in theory, and the lifestyle that comes with $1 million house.
right,
But I'm here.
right.
It's an interesting dilemma that I think people are going to face in certain markets, which is like it's suddenly like on my radar, which is
Hmm.
interesting. I'm kind of like, that's going to be a thing.
Yeah, it's something I pay attention to as well.
So, I mean, I'm not worried, but I'm like, it's like become very much on my radar all of a sudden because it's like, oh, we're at this level because we paid for this, we're good. But oh, look at these people now. Like, look at
Right.
them.
No, you're
It's an
right.
interesting like new idea in my head that I never really thought about before.
Yeah, well, our in 2017 we bought our house. It was affordable for, the regular people, and now it's very difficult to move to our town and
Hmm.
afford anything, unless you're at a certain level.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately that's just the way it kind of is. You
Right.
know, I am not at all. Uh, I would not have nearly been able to afford in like the New York Metro the type of thing that I'm able to afford
Right.
here.
Right.
Period. And there's multi factors for that, and it's some of it's property taxes, some of it's just cost per square foot,
Right.
some of it's the jobs available in the neighborhoods
Hmm.
here to compensate someone to buy, a house. Like there's a good jobs here,
Right.
period. So here compared to there, the more I'm here, the more I hear about what's going on up there,
Mhm.
the more it's like, wow, these are like two totally different stratums. These are like two totally different puzzles to solve. It's not like a
Yes,
simple equation where it's just, oh, there's like a cost of living adjustment. It's like there's a lot more nuance to it than that because the value
absolutely.
you're getting in different places is so wildly different for like people in like financial services with kids, that whole bit. Like down here, going back to the first part, when you were talking about stepping out to get your kids to do something, there's an expectation in like the area that you are going. Like
Hmm.
if you're not going, you're kind of like the one who's like, why didn't that person show up?
Right.
Why isn't that kid's parent here?
But yeah, that has changed. I agree with the dynamic of that. You know, Madison's performance for her theater and end of theater camp was at 11 o'clock on a Friday morning. You know, you're expected to
Excellent
be there.
example. 11 o'clock on a
Expected to be
be
there.
there. Right.
You know, and it was not a problem for me. You know, but you know, Jimmy, my husband, you know,
Can't just
he
like
can't
can't
be
just
there.
like duck out for an hour. It's just impractical.
And the amount of people that can make that work is surprising compared to I even, you know, 5 years ago.
Yeah, I agree that post-pandemic remote work and flexibility is a major driver of people's
Mhm.
ability to do that. Um, which goes back to like the benefits and all thing. Like people are gonna like hang on to that option as long
Oh
as they
yeah.
can. They're not gonna give it up willingly. But if aside from that, like I think I've talked about this on a different episode, but whatever, who cares? The same 7 people will listen to that same story again. The natural, I explained that whole commute earlier about doing a role in the New York area. Like you're looking at a 60-75 minute thing. But I also mentioned earlier that to get over to the other school here, yeah, it's 15 minutes. In theory, down here, I could go into the office and just take a lunch for an hour, shoot
Mhm.
12 minutes over to the school, see whatever I got to see, shoot 12
Right,
minutes home, and or back
right,
to the office, and I'm there. Like it's
right,
plausible that that can be done
right,
because your inherent commute between your work life and your home life is not
right,
like a 75-minute trek where you're like going through like tires on the ground and like you gotta like fight a ninja and you gotta like somehow like make sure that the power works the entire
right.
trip. It's not like that. So I hop in my car, it's 12 minutes that way, it's 12 minutes back.
And just do the math of how much time that saves you in a year to, you know, do other things other than commute, be with your family. You know, that's saving you, you know, 7 hours a week.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
multiply that by 52 weeks. That's the amount of time you know, that your the value of your time is worth so much more, you know, without having to do that commute. It's just it's worth its weight in gold.
100%. 100%, I agree. I agree. Which is why, we get to do stuff like this via Zoom,
Right.
which means we still get to we get to partake, and then when we're finally finishing up, which I think we're getting about time, we're about to be finishing up, we can just go to bed because it's a weeknight.
Exactly.
We don't
I
have to
have
go
my
to the
pajama
studio.
pants on already.
What's that?
I have my pajama pants on already.
Huh, all right, well, I didn't even wear pants. So, no, I do have pants on.
I
Um,
figured you had pants, and I wasn't even going to ask you to stand up and show.
no, no. But all right, so Danielle, thank you for being here for this
Thanks for having
episode.
me.
Hope you had a nice time.
I had a great
Um,
time.
so for everybody else, remember to like and subscribe. This is going to drop on Spotify and YouTube. You can also check out Trader Dad's Twitter and Trader Dad's Substack, where we drop a weekly news article. So, Danielle, is there anything else you want to say before we sign off?
No, this was great. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. So then we'll be back next month, Expiration Friday in August. And I have a couple of more live episodes in the works. So the episode where I sat with my mom was ungodly popular. Like even I was impressed by
That
how
was
many
the
people
best.
that. So it's not gonna be my mom again, but I have a couple of more live episodes in the wings. So I think in the next couple of months you'll see some of the live ones drop.
Cool.
But all right, so thanks everybody.
Thank you.